now I want to talk about the blood sugar issue, because this is important. Leviticus 17 says, for the life of the flesh is in the blood. And we also know there's an importance. Now, the blood goes throughout our blood vessels, and as a result of it, what happens? It ends up giving us the nutrition that we need from the food that we eat. It goes all throughout our arteries and our blood vessels and so forth. Now, I want to touch on this for a moment. This thing, I don't know if you can see that thing wiggling there. That is a terrible illustration of what a pancreas is. And the pancreas is something that produces certain hormones. One of the things that it helps to produce is called insulin. I'm going to make this very simplistic. So, but let me show you how the importance of insulin. Insulin is very important. I know a lot of times if you hear the carnivore stories or keto diet, they're going to say insulin is bad and so forth. But Paul Saladino, who is one of the top carnivores, he shares how he was one of the top people. I mean, one of the most popular carnivore doctors in the world. And finally, he started having health issues. He wasn't feeling well. His testosterone on a pure meat diet was just going down, down, down. He just didn't feel good. I think he had lack of energy. He tells a story of how rough it ended up becoming while he's promoting the paleo diet. And so finally, he ends up starting to add fruit. And he's like, I guess carbohydrates are good for us. And so he still eats meat, but he's, realizing the benefits of carbohydrates. But the question is, why? I want to look at this. So imagine this cell. This is a very simplistic illustration. We'll call this a muscle cell or a liver cell. And let's say we've just eaten a meal. For a normal human being, I don't have diabetes. So this is what happens for me. I ate a meal today with fat, protein, and carbohydrates, but I'm on high carb, low fat. And so I eat the meal. My stomach begins to break it down. It breaks some of the simple sugars down into something called glucose, but we'll just call it sugar to make it simple so everybody understands. So the sugar begins to go into my bloodstream. The body senses this, and my cells want fuel. They want energy. So what ends up happening is the pancreas says, the body tells the pancreas, hey, pancreas, we need some keys to open up the cells. Your cells, in order for the glucose, which is the standard fuel of cells, in order for the glucose, the sugar, the fuel to get in, you need a key to open the cell. I used to live in a motorhome, and in my motorhome, it was relatively large. We lived full-time on the road, and you had to have a key to go unlock the fuel tank because people might siphon off your fuel. So I had to have a key to open it up to put the fuel in. So too with our cells, you need a key to open up your cell to get the fuel in, but the normal fuel is glucose. And so the body tells the pancreas, hey, pancreas, send some keys. And the key is insulin. So the pancreas sends out a bunch of keys, which are insulin. They connect to the cell. And what ends up happening is they open it up, and then the glucose can go into the glucose channel. And now that cell has energy, and now you have energy. Now, Scott, can you actually see this video? So this five-pointed flower type thing, this is insulin. So I eat a meal, and my body tells pancreas, hey, send forth the insulin. The insulin connects to the cell. In the insulin receptor, it opens up the cells. This is sugar. This is simple glucose. It goes into my blood. It goes into my cell, and now the cell has energy, and now I have energy. And notice, because the sugar gets into the cell, I don't have high blood sugar. So what is causing the high blood sugar? We're going to get back to that point. This is how the normal human works. So on the left here, you have your pancreas that works well, and it sends forth the insulin after your meal. It opens up. The insulin's the key. It opens it up, goes to the insulin receptor, and then the sugar goes in. You have energy. But perfect health depends upon perfect circulation. So now let's look at how glucose and insulin work for a type 1 diabetic. Here's the same illustration, but type 1 diabetics' pancreas is damaged. There's a couple things that potentially can damage it. Too low vitamin D can damage your pancreas potentially. The other potential is dairy milk, cow milk, can potentially damage the pancreas so that it stops producing insulin. So notice this person doesn't have any keys. They just ate a meal. The stomach begins to break it down, sends forth the sugar, but there's no keys. So what happens to the sugar? It can't get in. It can't get in because you need a key to open up the cells, and there's no insulin, or at least not enough insulin to get in. So that's what happens. The pancreas is damaged. On the left side, you have the pancreas. It's damaged. It doesn't have any keys. The glucose can't get in. How does it work? But it's less than 10% of diabetics are type 1. Most diabetics are type 2. How does it work for a type 2 diabetic? Same illustration. We have our insulin there, our 5-pointed flowers there. And notice that our cell looks a little different. If you have a keen eye, you may notice it's more pink instead of red. The reason is because now this cell is fatty. And it doesn't mean that the person is fat. You could be thin and fatty. And so what ends up happening is the fat is, I'll give you an illustration. What if somebody came to your house and while you were gone, and let's say you don't have a high-tech way of getting in, you have an old-fashioned key and a keyhole. So you get your house and somebody stuck bubble gum in your keyhole. And now you have a good key and a good keyhole, but it's all gummed up. It's going to be really hard to get it in there, right? And what ends up happening is when we have a lot of fat within the cell, it doesn't mean you're fat. You could be thin and too much fat in your cells. What happens is your cell gets fatty. The researchers call it intramyocellular lipid, fat within the cell. So what happens is the keys come, our 5-pointed flowers, they come, but they don't connect well because somebody stuck, gum in the keyhole. They're filled with fat in this case, and because of that, the sugar can't get in. And so where is the sugar? It's in your bloodstream. So you have high blood sugar. So it is not the carbohydrates in the diet that actually caused the problem. The carbohydrates in the blood are a symptom that your insulin is not connecting to your cells very well. So
This is why like every reversing diabetes guy that I encounter is putting people on low fat, whole plant food diet, isn't it?
Yes,
that's going to reverse this.
And that's what it does. Now, I want to be clear, a keto diet also works for a different reason. You go on a very high-fat diet, as we've already mentioned, and since you have so few carbs, you don't end up having high blood sugar. But typically what you'll find is you take somebody on a keto diet, give them almost any carbohydrates, and boom, they have blood sugar spike. And the fact that you have a blood sugar spike while eating a banana says you have insulin resistance.
Yeah, you haven't healed these cells.
You have not healed yourself. So
what was that scientific term? That's the fatty cell?
Intramyocellular lipid. It just simply means.
That's a term we should all know. Like that's very important.
It is very, very important. So once again, it looks like it would be kind of like this. So you're like, hey, I don't have diabetes because I don't have a high blood sugar. But then you're like, have you eaten a banana? And they're like, well, no. Well, you eat one and then your blood sugar spikes and you're like, yeah, but that's because carbs are bad. Well, it'd be kind of like this. Let's say I have let's say all my life, Scott knows me and I've struggled with athlete's foot, which I haven't, by the way, but let's just imagine I have. And then finally one day Scott calls me up and says, how you doing? I'm like, I'm phenomenal. I don't have athlete's foot anymore. And you're like, really? Oh, I'm so glad you've had that. You've struggled with that for a long time. And you're like, oh, I'm totally healed. And it's like, well, what'd you do? I cut my feet off. Or another way of saying it, I don't walk anymore. And because let's say I kept my feet on, I just don't walk anymore. But now my feet don't hurt. So it's like it's healed. Well, it's like, if you feel the pain when you walk, you get the idea that if the body doesn't function properly under normal human experience, it is normal for humans to eat carbohydrates. Other than Eskimos, which are riddled with heart disease, you look at even the Hadza, one of these guys, the Hadza are another one of the hunter-gatherers. And this guy was a, carnivore or kind of a hunter-gatherer type, paleo type lifestyle. And so he wanted to go hang out with them for a week or two. And so he's with these full-on hunter-gatherers. And he said, I was basically a vegan the whole time I was with them, except for we ate a bunch of honey. And so he's like, so that, I guess that's technically. He said, well, there probably were some grubs in the honey, but, and so my point is these people, they are hunter-gatherers and often they are gatherer-hunters, meaning when in season, when all the good plant-based foods are there, they're eating tons of them. And in certain seasons, they may end up, once again, there are Eskimos, we get that, but yeah, a little beside the point. So when it comes to insulin resistance, people say, oh, sugar spikes your insulin. It does if your cells are full of fat. And so if you go on a low-fat plant-based diet, see this pink fat in our illustration here, that fat will become metabolized. It will be broken down. And as it gets broken down, it's like you're cleaning out the keyhole. And so now the key will start working again. And now you can eat bananas, you can eat whole foods, you can eat whole grains, and you're not going to have the blood sugar spikes unless your pancreas is damaged. But that's only a small subset of people. But even the people who their pancreas is damaged, I know people on, I mean, there's guys, they have a website called Mastering Diabetes, a YouTube channel. These guys are type 1 and they go on a super high carb, low fat diet. They tried the high fat thing for a while, and it might work for a while, and then their blood sugar got terrible because they're filling their cells up slowly with fat. In the beginning, it can work great, but then after a while, once those cells get kind of saturated with fat, it's hard to get the sugar in. So now they're on just the opposite, high carb, low fat diet. As type 1s, they do have to take some insulin because they've, their pancreases are damaged. But because of that, they have to take way less insulin, and they can eat tons of carbs, and they're not insulin resistant.
Wow. And so you got like a year time window where it can mask the problem, and then it starts to just continue. And this is what VI Zion in the chat asked. He says, what are some excellent carbs we can eat? And you just started naming them. You've named fruit, you named sweet potatoes, you've named just whole grains. And he says, is pasta a healthy carb? And would you say if it's whole grain based?
For people who are not insulin resistant, they typically will not see. So there's a doctor by the name of Neil Barnard. And Neil Barnard has done research on this, and they help people reverse type 2 diabetes with whole unrefined pasta even. Now, I'm not telling you have to do that. Now, if you have insulin resistance, any of these carbohydrates spike your blood sugar. You got too much fat in your cells. But when your body starts to cleanse itself of all that fat in your cells, what ends up happening is something like pasta will not spike your blood sugar any longer. You'll have a little increase of blood sugar, which is normal and healthy after a meal, but it won't spike and cause damage to the blood vessels into your nerves and so forth throughout your body. It will just give a gentle increase of sugar and give you energy. You'll be able to use that energy and be healthy and long living like the cultures. I'll give you here's a great example. So yes, whole foods. Now, if you really still struggle with high blood sugar issues, one of the ways to do it is to eat if you want to eat your grains, if you want to be the most extreme, ultra healthiest to lower blood sugar, you can eat so for instance, like instead of quick oats are more likely to spike your blood sugar than something like old-fashioned oats. But then what's even better than that, if you really want to lower your blood sugar spike, you could eat something called whole oat groats. Those are like the actual what it looks like. It's basically kind of looks like almost like rice. And you have to cook them a long time. They break down. I don't do that. If I have oatmeal, I just have regular old-fashioned oats or whatever they're called. But I don't have blood sugar spikes. It's not an issue because I'm not eating a high-fat diet, so I don't struggle with that. But eating foods is close to their unrefined state. You can either cook them or eat them raw, but we're just talking about plants. You can eat beans. Beans are one of the greatest foods to keep your blood sugar from spiking. And when I say beans, I'm talking about dry beans, not dry. Don't eat them dry. You'll get sick. But right. Dried beans that you cook. And now I know it's tough because every time you bring something up, you have to. I know Dr. Gundry's one of the most popular marketers.
Oh yeah.
Tell you lectins are deadly. They're terrible. They're horrible. That's why everybody's sick. And the research actually shows that people who eat more lectins have less cancer. Now you don't want. And do you know how to almost eliminate completely lectins in your beans? All you got to do is cook them. It's not that complex. And nobody eats raw, dry beans, so it's kind of a non-issue, but he made it look popular and people are terrified of it. But in reality, now, if you struggle with beans, avoid them. If you never eat them and then you eat them, you'll probably get gas. But if you eat them and then you eat them a couple days later and a couple days later, your body will start getting used to them and you will have less gas. Well, right in the beginning, you probably will have it. But if long-term, there are some people that just don't do as well with them. Once again, if you're allergic to any food or don't do well with it, don't eat it. It's okay.